I hate that when you start recording so early.
I have an alarm set for 5 minutes of, so I always kind of get it, hopefully get it going before too many people get in here.
I just never want to get on here and bitch, moan, and groan and get you in trouble.
Hang on a second. Okay, what you got to say?
I met Dabney the other day at this freedom event. That guy is a motherfucker.
Man, I saw his stuff, but I don't know exactly. I mean, I didn't get to meet him.
He's an asshole.
Sounded like it from what I could see.
Yeah.
So you saw my comment on his post then at one point.
Yeah. So yeah, I was not impressed. Obviously, that Freedom Caucus does not believe in all freedoms. It's just the one they want to give you. So.
Right. It talks about. I mean, on his campaign page and stuff, he talks about Second Amendment freedoms. Doesn't mention First Amendment freedoms. Doesn't mention Fifth Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Sixth Amendment. All those other fun amendments out there. Yeah. All he wants is the right to bear arms.
Right.
And and not wear a mask and not have to get a vaccine and not have to be socially responsible is the way I looked at it. Because of course, my comment on a couple of his pages, I think he's got 2 Facebook pages, was, if you don't support medical cannabis freedoms, you don't support freedom. But
yep,
he'll ignore me. He's all about law enforcement. I mean,
I know.
I hate to say it sometimes, but because there's a lot of good people out there that fought for our country and that support our country and that protect our citizens, but I have issues with people that have kind of spent their lifetime, as I call it, suckling at the teat of the taxpayer for their blue welfare, and yet don't physically support the citizens that they're supposed to be protecting.
Right.
Or actually support them. I'm still on pause here, aren't I? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's you look at people that join the military in general, and it's lower income people. They're looking for work. They're looking for a job. They're looking for a way to support their family and themselves. And, I appreciate that, but it's not what so many of them, like he says, I did it to serve my nation. It was a job opportunity. No offense to you, because I know you spend a long time in the military, but I also know that you support and fight for people's rights as well. So I don't want to, make it sound like I'm attacking you personally in any way. It's just, when I watch these First Amendment audit things that I watch way too often, I'm watching people that are funded by the taxpayer completely abusing taxpayers. And it just, it irks me. Anyway, I'm going to go back and turn this on for a second.
Alrighty, partner. Good chatting.
We got a couple of minutes. Actually, we don't have a couple of minutes. We're already at 7:02. I did not get out and do a bunch of my blasts to some of our followers to join up. So let me see if I can scroll through my list here real quick. I have lost a lot of them down the line because I've been sending Facebook messages to a lot of candidates as I'm seeing them announce their filing. I think deadline is tomorrow for filing for the primary. And so I've been seeing a lot of candidates posting that they're filing. So of course I'm messaging them going, hey, candidates want to know your cannabis position. Fill out our questionnaire. There we go. Got a couple coming in. See if I can get a couple more. So yeah, that's kind of, I've lost some of y'all down on the list here. I've kind of lost them. All right. Okay, let me just kind of close this window here. Go ahead and open up my disclaimer window so I have that handy. And let me start by just welcoming everybody to the Wednesday night South Carolina NORML Cannabis Conversation. My name's Scott Weldon. I'm the Executive Director of the South Carolina chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. want to again welcome everybody that's here on the call with me. Welcome anybody who might be watching us on YouTube live, and also welcome anybody who's watching as a YouTube recording later on. When I mention YouTube, I always like to point out that during our live meetings here, we are not actually monitoring the comment section on the YouTube channel. But if you do have any questions, comments, and or concerns, and you're watching on YouTube, please leave them down below off to the side, wherever it is your device has you leaving comments. And once YouTube is done rendering the video, usually within about 24 hours, we will come back, revisit the comment section, and try and address any of your questions, comments, and or concerns. We're going to kick things off with our regular disclaimer of all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. We do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. All righty, close that up and let's kind of see here. We got a couple of us in the room and oh, that's something different there. And I was really kind of struggling a little bit tonight on topics to talk about. We're going to kind of talk about running a South Carolina NORML chapter and some of the expenses involved, and hopefully talk about some ideas on finding sponsorships, donations, and promoting membership. Before we get into that, there are a couple of things I want to mention, which are kind of important in the cannabis legislative movement at the moment. As many of you know, the South Carolina Compassionate Care Act, Senate Bill S-150, is in the House 3M committee, and they are scheduled to have a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I'm going to share a link in the chat window here. And this is the schedule for the House. Started March 28th and goes out through April 7th. But if you scroll down to March 31st, Thursday, March 31st, go to the second line item, 9 a.m., Black Room 427. It says hybrid, which I believe that is a subcommittee of the 3M committee. And you'll notice off to the right there, it mentions that on the agenda is S-150. The agenda link is available. I haven't even clicked that yet. I'm going to quick open it and see what if it tells me anything. And I'll share that link with you as well here real quick while I look at it. All right, agenda S-150. No, it just gives a brief of what the bill is. But that is on the agenda tomorrow as subcommittee 1. So it looks like participants tomorrow are going to be the chair, Christopher Hart, Representative Wendy Brawley, Representative Joseph Bustos, Representative Leon Howard, Representative Jermaine Johnson Sr., and Representative Crystal Matthews. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 members of the committee are going to be in there. There are 18 members on the 3M committee. So this apparently the Health and Environmental Affairs Committee is a subcommittee of the 3M committee. We shared a action post. I got to go dig it out. Earlier this week, actually late last week, South Carolina, asking people to go ahead and contact the committee members. I'm going to share that link here real quick with you in case anybody did not get a chance to contact them. What this link does is it emails out a message to all 18 of the committee members. And to date, oops, page not found that I'm going through the wrong direction here. There it is. To date, I believe it is a total of, I'm waiting for it to load up here. Target report. 2,340 messages have been sent. That is 130 participants sent emails out to 18 House members. And that is a total of 2,340 messages sent. I was pretty psyched about that. One of the pluses on this for now was we've actually been able to connect in with National. National's actually posted this one on their website and shared it out through their email list, which is much, much larger than ours. I think they target it to just South Carolina, but I'm not sure of that. And through this action network that we use, they actually share their lists down with us through some kind of ladder setup. And last count, we had about 888 people on our action network list. I'm pretty psyched about that. I mean, getting 130 responses was pretty good for us in general. I usually see 25 or 30 of our regular supporters and some of their friends that may send out our action alert, but having National share it and having it posted on National site has actually helped to boost our numbers. I'm not disappointed at all that we've kind of flooded their mailboxes. I'm very happy that those those committee members have received 130 nudges from our supporters, and that is just through NORML. I've also seen action links through Marijuana Policy Project. I believe I've seen them through Safe Access. I know which is the one I'm thinking. I'm blanking on it. Americans for Safe Access, ASA. So there have been a couple of other organizations that have created actions for people to be able to contact their these committee members. We'll be watching this tomorrow, and we will be downloading the recording later in the day. As you'll see on that link that I shared with you, there is a live broadcast click. So right about 9 o'clock, go ahead and click that. It might take them a little bit until they actually start it, usually a couple of minutes until they actually start the live broadcast. But you can watch it live tomorrow. I know I'm planning on tuning in, and once it's complete, takes a little bit of time, I think, for them to render, but then we're able to download it. We will re-upload it to our YouTube page, our YouTube channel. And and we have a question here from Ina, they have a hearing, then what happens? It depends on what happens in their hearing. I don't know exactly what, and maybe somebody has a little bit more insight than I. There will be some discussion on it. And I don't think the committee actually makes any amendments or proposes any amendments at this point. I think that won't happen until it possibly hits the House floor. But the fact that they're acting on it, they're going to discuss it, and they may possibly vote on it. Because it's a subcommittee, I don't know if it has the effect of the full committee. So I mean, I'm a little bit unclear on what will be happening tomorrow. So definitely I'm going to be tuning in and trying to find out. My hope is that the subcommittee is able to vote it forward. But my thought is they'll be able to, it's going to be discussed and probably then recommended to the full committee to vote on at a later date. If it's then voted on and voted out of committee, it goes to the House floor. At that point, the House members have an opportunity to discuss it, debate it similarly, I believe, to the way they did in the Senate. Hopefully not as long and drawn out. And hopefully at some point it comes to a House floor vote. If it successfully succeeds a House floor vote, it would then go to the governor for his signature. The last comment I heard from Henry McMaster was, I think, early February, before it actually passed out of the Senate committee, or right in about that point, where he said he's got no comment on it until he reads it. Because I believe he was asked, would he sign it? And he says, I really can't comment. I won't read, and I won't comment until he's read the finalized bill. My understanding is actually if it passes the House, I think it has to go back over to the Senate for reapproval before it goes, because again, they can make amendments on it. I'm not clear. Again, this is kind of one of my first times following this bill where it hasn't died in committee somewhere. I apologize to you that I'm not really that knowledgeable on what these steps are and what's going to be happening at the moment. Ina mentions that we only have a week before session ends. I thought we were just at crossover. Crossover date is in about a week, and it's already made the crossover. Let me go back and double check that. Dun, 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 dun. I don't have an end date on this particular thing. Let me go ahead and do a real quick Google on this. June 15th is when the when this particular session ends, the General Assembly. That's what I'm seeing here real quick on Ballotpedia. Let me go ahead and open that link to it just to make sure I'm clear here. South Carolina Legislature is scheduled to convene January 11th and adjourn on June 15th. So what I'm assuming is the crossover date, I believe, is coming up here in April. Let me see if I can get an answer to that one. Bill crossover deadlines. I'm going to have to scroll through this one real quick and find it. South Carolina. April 10th. April 10th is the crossover date. And what the crossover date is, and that's what we ran into last year, is last session. No, it was last year or last session. The bill did not pass out of the Senate in time to make the crossover. And so it sat till the beginning of the next session. But this bill's already crossed over. I don't think there's an issue of it crossing back to the Senate for final reapproval, the final vote, but I'm not real clear on that one. But I do know session runs until the 10th of June. I'm sorry, 15th of June. This is interesting, just a couple of days after the primary. Our primaries are June 11th this year, I believe. Now, anyway, what I am asking is anybody who has not already contacted the 3M committee, go ahead and follow that link and send a message to our committee members here in the House at the 3M committee that you want them to move this bill forward and to the House floor for a vote. Once that happens, and like I say, I'll be keeping an eye on it, we will go ahead and update our action alert to include all House members. And at that point, when you go and you go to fill out that action alert, it will specifically target your House of Representative member. Thankfully, I'm in a district that has a supportive House member. Unfortunately, with the Senate, my senator was not a supporter. But we still had a pretty good pass. What was it? 28 to 15, if I remember the vote correctly, 28 to 15. So that was a total of 43 of the 46 Senate seats. I think there's one seat empty at the moment. House is a little bit different. We have 124 members in the House. I keep hearing from some other advocates that it's going to be a tighter vote. 28 to 15 was, I think, a fair spread. But yeah, it could be tighter in the House. I know there's definitely some House members that are dead set against it. And I know some of them, like my own House member, does support it. but we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see first if it gets out of committee. Before I go wandering on to the next comment that I want to, or the next legislation I want to talk about, let me just throw it out there. If anybody has any either corrections for me on what's going on with S-150 or any other comments, questions, or concerns about what's going on with S-150, the Compassionate Care Act. Okay, I'm seeing no mic. Come on. Josh mentioned it's a crappy bill. I can't deny that. I really can't. I mean, it was a crappy bill when it was first introduced, and Tom Davis made it very, very clear that he wanted it to be the most restrictive medical bill in the nation. I believe it's got 11 qualifying conditions now. Again, one of the big things that we believe at NORML is that there should be the option of getting flower and having smoking. Even Tom Davis acknowledged that smoking is more efficacy, has greater efficacy for some patients, it's particularly in his words, particularly for vets with suffering PTSD. But law enforcement doesn't like the smell of it or something like that. Also, Josh mentioned it's an unaffordable plan. A good comment I read by another one of our supporters on another post from another organization was that, forcing tinctures and extracts just adds to the cost. It's not free to extract and to create these other products from the flower. And if they had flower available, it would be much more affordable to the patients. And that's what many patients want. Even if it was that they bought their own flour and they decarboxylated themselves and they did their own baking with it or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of you out there that are pretty knowledgeable about that. I don't know for you, it's going to be expensive. There we go again. And of course, my position on it, it's really not going to help a lot of the people that we as a civil rights and civil liberties organization are looking to help. And that's the people that are being thrown in jail for simple possession of small amounts of cannabis, usually people that are of lower income. It was even brought up in the Senate debates. If this is going to be expensive, there's a lot of people in such and such a district that won't be able to afford it. That's quite true. It is not designed for the masses. It's designed for the privileged, and we don't like that. But and you may have seen it from me and from our local chapter. Is our enthusiasm for this bill really dropped after those Senate debates and after those 71 amendments. And mind you, even before all that, our enthusiasm was limited because of how limited the bill is. But I do have to acknowledge it's the first step for South Carolina to kind of come out of the cannabis dark ages. Although during those debates, I still heard a lot of reefer madness talk, a lot of discriminatory language, calling cannabis consumers Cheech and Chongers, that kind of thing. I mean, that to me would be like calling anybody who has a sip of alcohol Foster Brooks or a drunken alcoholic or something like that. Very disrespectful for people who choose a different medicine than some of these legislators. But it's the reality of living in South Carolina. All right. I think I've kind of addressed S-150 for the moment as best we can. Like I said, it's not our favorite option. Matter of fact, I'm going to go here real quick and hopefully my computer doesn't lock up on me. So what I'm looking for there. I'm going to go ahead and share this one fact sheet from NORML National, and it is core attributes of a patient-centric medical cannabis regulatory program. This is pretty much what I kind of try and follow when we're talking about medical bills and what we think are key points in it. You'll notice if you follow this link, the 6 bullet points. First one right off the top, access to whole plant cannabis. The second is limited taxes and fees, which I believe Tom Dejas has addressed. I'm trying to keep taxes lower. Third bullet point, wide latitude for doctors to decide treatment regimes. It is not met by this bill at all. Like I say, with a limit with 11 qualifying conditions. I believe Mississippi just recently passed theirs with 24 qualifying conditions. Fourth bullet point, personal cultivation rights. I think people should have the opportunity to grow their own. That could really help in the expense of it. American citizens are allowed to produce up to 200 gallons of beer or wine a year. A product that's much more dangerous than cannabis, and yet, there's no home grow option for people that are cannabis patients or cannabis consumers. Another thing, I don't know if it was included in the bill, I'd have to look into it, but employment protections. We do know that there's a bill that's been, I'm sorry, there has not been a bill for consumer protections as far as cannabis testing in the workplace. And that's a big issue, one that is a little bit more near and dear to my heart. I think you may have heard me talk on the conversation before. Up until last year, I had never peed in a cup for a job. I refused to. I ended up starting my own photography business after a number of years of working for other companies that didn't pee test initially, which were photography-based companies, and I think they were just that desperate to find people. They didn't, and it was not government. But basically, I think it was 86, may have been a little bit earlier, when the Reagan administration implemented mandatory cannabis and drug testing for government employees, and that very quickly spread to the private sector and still goes on today. And as you all know, as well as I do, cannabis testing does not indicate impairment and does not predict poor work performance. It's just a way to discriminate against cannabis consumers, and pretty much that's all it is. It's a way to discriminate against cannabis consumers. And yet my biggest chuckle is, half the time you're arguing with, or not arguing, but maybe trying to discuss it, or you mentioned cannabis, and all of a sudden somebody said, why don't you just go get a job, you lazy stoner? Why don't they just stop testing for cannabis and be a lot easier to go get a job? So anyway, that's what it is. Sixth one on that particular bullet point list is, and other reasonable civil statutory protections. When we talk about some of those, a good example of that is, I've seen that there is a bill that's been submitted in the, I don't remember his house, I believe it was the House, that the smell of cannabis would not be a valid reason to stop and search, for police to use to stop and search somebody. That legislation got nowhere, and I don't expect it to move anywhere by the end of session or by that crossover date. Excuse me, that's again a bill that will probably just die in committee this year. But I do anticipate that kind of bill coming forward again next year, next session, especially if this bill passes. But again, that was another reason why law enforcement didn't want smokable and or flower, is so that they could differentiate. Oh, I smell burning marijuana. I now have a reason to stop you and search you and potentially arrest you if I find any cannabis or any other illegal materials in your vehicle. We're hoping that kind of comes about next year and maybe get some movement. The other thing I'd really love to see is, especially if they do implement a cannabis medical program, now you've got patients out there that are either working in the workplace and or looking for work, that they end cannabis pre-employment testing and random drug testing for cannabis in the workplace, because again, it does not indicate impairment. It does not predict poor work performance. I shared on another post somewhere one of the fact sheets about cannabis in the workplace and how it doesn't seem to affect workplace safety. And I know the one response was, well, what happens if there is an accident? Is insurance going to pay you? As far as I know, yes. As a matter of fact, I've seen it happen with some people where they've had an accident. They were then told to have to go and drug test. They drug tested positive for cannabis and they lost their job, but their insurance was paid for the accident, the injuries and such like that. And I know in one particular case, they were said, so when you come back again next year to apply, make sure that you don't pee hot, but they were welcome to come back and reapply. It was a seasonal job. And they were welcome to come back and reapply the following year, even though they were terminated for having cannabis in their system after an accident. I could agree with that. I see Josh is commenting. I think up to the group here that his work suffers when he's not medicated. I could see that. I know I tend to focus better when I'm consuming than when I'm not. At least I like to think I am. I don't know. I'd have to maybe ask those around me their opinions, but I like to think that sometimes I can focus better and concentrate more on what I'm working on when I'm somewhat medicated. Otherwise, I believe undiagnosed ADHD. I'm like a little bit all over the place at times. But anyway, those are the 6 bullet points on the core attributes of a medical centric cannabis program. And I think I've rambled on long enough about 150 here tonight. So I am going to kind of cut it short on that. The second thing I do want to mention is that the MORE Act is scheduled to come to a vote this week. Now I'm going to have to go backtrack to the Take Actions page. There we go. And let me go ahead and get that link to share with you to contact your legislators to support the vote on the MORE Act. I really was hoping not to spend a whole lot of stuff on legislative tonight, but I didn't have a lot else to talk about. So here we go is the link for the federal support to federal support for the MORE Act. This bill would make it basically as a descheduling bill. It also includes some restorative justice language in it, facilitate the expungement of low-level federal marijuana convictions and incentivize state and local governments to take similar action, creating pathways for ownership opportunities in the emerging regulated industry, as well as other sectors, allowing veterans for the first time to obtain medical cannabis recommendations from their VA doctors, removing the threat of deportation for immigrants accused of minor marijuana infractions, providing critical reinvestment grant opportunities for communities that have suffered disproportionately, and protecting and respecting basic rights and civil liberties of cannabis consumers under federal law when it comes to public benefits. Similar language is probably going to be, and I can't really predict a whole lot, but we know that sometime, hopefully in the next 30 days or so, we've been told in April, the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act, I always call it COA, the Cannabis Opportunity and Administration and Opportunity Act is supposed to be reintroduced sometime in April. I hope they're not waiting for some silly date to like do it on 4/20, but they've been dragging their feet since, I think it was 1st of September that the question and comment, the comment period had ended after they had proposed it as a legislative draft last year. And they got a lot of feedback from different groups, ours as well as anti-cannabis groups. But since then, from my understanding, they've been redrafting that bill, and that should be coming to be announced shortly. Also, another thing I want to mention real quick is I think they still have it posted here as the Mage Bill. Let me take a look. The Mage Bill, they do. I'm going to go ahead and share the link for this one as well. This is the State Reform Act. This was the bill that's been sponsored by my local House Representative, Nancy Mace. It is, again, a descheduling bill. It does include some restorative justice language. And my understanding is the tax rates in this were much lower than they were in the legislative draft of the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act. And last I heard on this is that she has been promised a hearing on this coming up soon. We don't know exactly when soon is. I know one of the questions that Representative Mace was asked was, does this mean you need to vote for the MORE Act in the House when it comes up? And she says there's no quid pro quo on the hearing for her bill. Josh is asking if Mace has ever stated she is or was a consumer, and I don't believe she's ever acknowledged if she has been a consumer or not. I don't want to even speculate on that. Although I do have sort of some of my own opinions, I am going to keep them to myself. But as far as I know, I've seen no actual mention that she's ever admitted to, taking a hit and didn't inhale or any of those kind of silly things that you'll hear some legislators talk about. But yeah, keep your eye out on what's going on with that bill as well. To me, this is an interesting bill and also an interesting legislative race, or should I say election race, because she is up for election this year. She has a Republican opponent, so she will be having to run in the primaries against Katie Arrington. Again, I've tried to reach out to Katie Arrington's people to see if they will complete our candidate questionnaire, and we've gotten no response. And real quick side note on that, we're trying to get people to fill out the cannabis questionnaire, which will then get aggregated into the Smoke the Vote voters guide at NORML. Let me go ahead and get the South Carolina link for the Smoke the Vote guide, and I'll share it here real quick. At the moment, the people that I like your response there, Josh. The people that actually run the Smoke the Vote software is not NORML. It is a third party, and they are responsible for loading in all of the candidates that are coming up for election. I'm not sure exactly where they get their data from, but as I mentioned earlier in our call, I believe it is not until tomorrow the deadline for filing for this election. So it's probably going to be a couple of weeks until they actually get all that information loaded in and aggregated into the Smoke the Vote guide. At that point, I'm going to have to go in and then start loading in the information that we've gathered with our candidate questionnaire. To date, I've only had 2 state level candidates fill it out. I have had a municipal level candidate fill it out, which it really wasn't an appropriate questionnaire for local level people. And the Smoke the Vote guide only does state and federal level. So what we're starting to do is work on a page on our website, scnormal.org, that will talk about or comment on any municipal candidates that have filled out our form. And I'm thinking about starting another questionnaire specifically for municipal level candidates, asking different questions, because of course the questions on our federal or on our current questionnaire ask more about legislation. Have you voted for legislation? Have you proposed legislation? Have you co-sponsored legislation? Blah, blah, blah. And that's not necessarily appropriate for the municipal candidates. We would probably ask them more questions on, would you support support and or sponsor a decrim ordinance in your community type question. That would be probably a primary one, because that is something that we as an organization are starting to look to do, is address more municipal decrim ordinances throughout the state, because we just don't see it happening at the state level for a while, until we actually get support municipally throughout different cities and municipalities in the state. A little side note on that is I did happen to notice that the Charleston mayor is having a meet the mayor kind of thing coming up next week. And you were able to go and register and maybe put a little comment on what you wanted to discuss with the mayor. Guess who went ahead and signed up and said he wants to talk to the mayor about the potential for cannabis decriminalization ordinances in Charleston, South Carolina. So I will be going down on Tuesday, hopefully, to downtown and having a moment to talk with the mayor here and see what their position is on it. Wish me luck. I don't know what's going to happen. Mike, you're saying you submitted some comments through their online form and they didn't get updated. I may have missed that because usually that's me that has to do that sort of stuff. I'll go back and check because I know I found some at one point when I went in and I didn't get any notification that there were updates, and I found them like way after the fact. So if yours are in there, I do apologize. I will go back and try and double check that.
Well, I can update it also since I've met so many nice politicians in the last 6 months to a year. So I'll try to get that to you.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to work on that because like I say, as some of these new candidates come in, or even as the legislators themselves, you can go to the Smoke the Vote guide now, and any of the existing legislators that are listed there, you'd be able to make comments, and hopefully I would see that. Let me scroll through here. Somewhere in here, it usually says, do you know more about this person? Let me go and click on the name, Alan Wilson, who is running this year. I don't know if he has an opponent. And I don't know why this is not opening. Huh. Nope, I'm getting page not working. Let me go ahead and reload this, see if I can get anything. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna have to contact somebody at National or actually have the name of the person who is supposed to be running this. I'm not getting any action when I click on any of the legislators' names, and it should take you in and give you more information and give them an opportunity to comment if you know more. Yeah, I'm getting a page isn't working. Anyway, I'm going to back out of this real quick. And I just wanted to, like I say, mention those federal level legislation that's moving forward. Hopefully the House votes on the MORE Act and moves it over to the Senate. We'll see. And I mean, it did pass last time. It was more of a symbolic vote. It was right at the end of session. I want to say in December 2020, if I remember correctly. So we're hoping that gets voted forward. And as I've mentioned before, between the MORE Act and the Cannabis Administration Opportunity Act and the State Reform Act, it's going to be kind of a race to the top on hopefully which one passes first. We don't know, but we're hoping something does move forward. Some have more sponsors than others, some have more support than others, but we'll have to see kind of where that goes. Let me go ahead and close up a couple of tabs here. What I was planning to talk tonight, well, I didn't have a lot to talk about tonight, and that was why, again, the late notification on subject for tonight. I decided to, at the last minute, try and post something that we would talk about fundraising, sponsorships, donations, and such for our chapter. Part of the reason is our membership drive is over for the season. Although it doesn't mean that we're, done trying to get new members. But our coffers are getting kind of thin and dry. I did make a purchase just a couple of weeks ago, about a week or two ago, for another batch of brochures. The brochures, as you know, are one of our primary documents that we like to hand out. Inside the brochure, as I always like to talk about, is the NORML Foundation Freedom Card. You read up the top, it explains it a little bit. You cut out the bottom and you keep it with your ID in case you ever stop by law enforcement. It basically explains your rights under the Constitution. For the most part, it covers your Fourth Amendment right to not consent to an illegal search or seizure, to be basically secure, safe and secure in your person, place, and possessions. Your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. You don't need to be answering questions. Your Sixth Amendment right to not answer questions without an attorney present. Also mentions that you refuse to waive all of your privileges and rights pursuant to the case of Miranda versus Arizona. Do not ask me any questions or make any comments about my decision. What you're supposed to do is hand that to the law enforcement officer with your identification if you're required to ID, if you're being accused of a crime. And in most states, you're not required to identify yourself unless they actually have reasonable articulable suspicion that you have either committed a crime or in the process of committing a crime or are about to commit a crime. I don't know how many law enforcement officers understand that clearly. But basically, at best, even if you follow follow what's considered a Terry stop, which is based on the Supreme Court case Terry versus Ohio, they say I need to have reasonable suspicion is what law enforcers say, but the actual law says they have to have reasonable suspicion of a crime. And they always forget that little part of a crime. And so they say, well, I saw you lurking around and it made me suspicious. I see you here taking pictures of, mind you, I watch First Amendment audits. I see you taking pictures of, of our police station or our police cars. That's suspicious to me. Of what crime? It's just suspicious. So I'm going to have a right to Terry stop you. And a Terry stop also, they have to have a reasonable articulable suspicion that you are possessing a firearm or possessing a weapon to be able to pat you down. And again, it's not an in-pocket search. They're not allowed to stick their hands in your pockets, pull things out of your pockets. It's a pat down, but they still need to suspect you have a weapon to Terry stop you, which, like I say, from what I watch on live videos quite often, a lot of these videos, they don't look at that way. You're suspicious to me because you're wearing a red shirt. I'm going to pat you down for my safety. And again, that's a violation of your rights as they're written in the Constitution. But take it up in court is usually what their answer is to that. Okay, I'm just kind of reading comments here, so sorry about my delay here. I did see Josh posted some pictures of a True Leaf product, I guess visiting out of state. A powdered version. Powdered THC from True Leaf.
It's made to mix in your drinks, or you could use it like a goodie powder.
So basically it's an extract, kind of like, I've seen, CBD powders like that, extracts. So I'm assuming that's what it is. Is it water soluble or does it kind of float in the product, in the water?
It's water soluble.
Interesting. That is interesting. That just kind of got me sidetracked from what I was talking about. I was talking about civil rights, civil liberties, and our brochures. But thank you for sharing that. I do appreciate that, Josh. The reason I brought up our brochures and our bank account is because, like I say, we did purchase a bunch of these. It took a good hit on our bank account, and we have regular bills as it is. We have to pay for our Zoom account so we can have these meetings regularly. We have to pay for our website and our web hosting. That's a good monthly bill. We have a post office box that we have to pay for. I have a list somewhere on our website under the donations page on some of the things that we have to cover. Let me see. It says paid media and advertising. We really don't do any of that because we can't afford to. It does cost us when we go out to our education and outreach events. I must admit, we do have one where we're going to be out on April 16th at a local pub restaurant here in Charleston called the Bohemian Bowl. And we've been invited to participate at no charge. But an example is when we were up at Soda City back in January. I think the fee for the day was $65, which was pretty good considering I think the regular nonprofits pay a little bit more than that. Plus, I think they pay some other fees. It's a little bit confusing. But yeah, quite often we're at vendor events. You know, we've got to pay the same or similar vendor rates. Yeah, so there are costs involved, and it's just one of those things where I get a little bit worried when our bank accounts get too low because I can't afford to pay for them. Out of my pocket, I'm unemployed and do not have an income. I do not make any money from the government for being unemployed or any kind of thing like that. Bless my wife for supporting me. But that's why I P-test. I'm actually have quit cannabis so I can try and pass a P-test for a job application. I'm about 30 days in and still peeing hot. So we'll see how that plays out in the next couple of weeks as I try and get everything out of my system. But with that said, you know, like I say, I'm just sort of reaching out today to ask for any thoughts, suggestions, comments on ways for us to maybe try and improve our fundraising. I do want to point out inside our brochures, we do have 2 advertising coupon spots. We ask on I think on our website, it says we're asking $300 per spot per 1,000 brochures. And the reason that is because it costs us a little over $300 to order in 1,000 of these, including shipping. And we figured we'd cover the shipping costs on it if we could get a donor. And if we get two sponsors on these, we actually put a little bit extra in the coffers for some other activities. We do also have on our website a sponsor page. I think I closed that page at the moment, but we have a sponsor page on there. And at this point, I think we only have, let me go find your sponsor page. 3 sponsors on there, and I'll share the page with you real quick. Our 3 sponsors on there now, one is the Charleston T-shirt factory, which is where we get our T-shirts from, and they give us a great deal and save us a lot of money, and that to me is their sponsorship. Another organization called, they've just recently changed their name, the Knot Burger Pub in Somerville, South Carolina, an Irish pubish. They changed from the Celtic Knot to just the Knot. They had a bit more of an Irish theme then. Now they're calling it Irish-ish. But apparently they've got, wow, I've been there before. They've got great burgers and sandwich stuff. And also, last year during April, they did a fundraiser and raised quite a bit of money for us by basically what they would do is you would buy one of their burgers, they would take $1 and donate it to us, and they must have sold a crap load of these. Actually, one particular burger they had on the list. You buy this burger, and $1 goes to NORML. They must have sold a crap load of those burgers because they gave us a pretty darn dandy donation. Also, Creative 420 Print Media, which is actually out of Pennsylvania. But they have made donations and given us free product, free signage, and some discounted printing, significantly discounted printing prices. So if you have any reason need any of those services, help support our sponsors. I have not been reaching out to any cannabis companies specifically. I would really like to see, I know in the past we had, like I said, once COVID hit, a lot of my activity kind of rolled back. And that's one thing I mentioned. There's all these CBD and hemp companies now that are, becoming more prolific in South Carolina ever since the hemp bill passed a couple of years back, or the CBD bill passed in 2016. And then, of course, the hemp bill in 2018, the farm bill, which sort of also helped that. And although we've got a lot of them that say, hey, we support what you do, they're not willing to back it with either funding or put their name on it. And I'm not sure.
But I was thinking like Trulieve and any of the other big companies, the big marijuana companies are starting to look at South Carolina because they know we're on the bridge. As soon as it's passed, you're going to have so many different dispensaries that are wanting to move in. I would start looking at who's probably wanting to get their foot in the door first. And maybe they want that early advertising, and they, of course, want marijuana legal here. So,
yes, that's a good suggestion. I think maybe that will be something I'm going to have to put on my list to start reaching out to some of the bigger companies, national companies, or prominent companies in some of the other states.
DJ can help you there.
Excellent. Any input I can definitely appreciate. What we have on our page here, I'm going to go ahead and click on my link just so I can read it. Our spot, we do have it kind of broken down as a flat rate, and then we break it down to monthly. If somebody wanted to be a platinum sponsor, it's $100 a month or $1,200 a year. If they want to be a gold sponsor, $75 a month or $900 a year. Our silver sponsor is $35 a month or only $420 a year. And our bronze sponsors, $20 a month, $240 a year. It's not a budget breaker for any of these companies. And that's just basically for our basic annual sponsorships. They would get, promotion on our sponsorship page. They would get mentioned from time to time on our conversations like this, and probably an occasional comment on our posts, but not kind of following what National does. They have their sponsors, and their sponsors are, listed on their page, but they really don't talk about them or share posts about them or advertise for them type thing. Ours is a little different. We say they get a sponsorship on our page. They'll get a discount on our booth at our annual event, which we, again, have been on hold for the past couple of years, but we are looking to start doing annual events this year. Probably not unless we schedule something for late in the year, closer to election day. And the ability to use our logo on their marketing and say that they support the cause in South Carolina. Any inputs and or thoughts on that as we move forward? I would definitely like to assistance with. I am not a marketing person when it comes to that, but it's something that I could definitely use some help with down the road.
I'll be glad to help with that. I got a few contacts down in Florida too.
All right, excellent. Yeah, we'll kind of talk offline and at another time. Maybe we can schedule a Zoom to talk about that just between us, maybe sometime next week.
I'll be getting back in town, so just let me know.
Okay, I will definitely do that. Maybe I can note to remind myself. Besides sponsors,
if y'all ever want to discuss, I know it has nothing to do with South Carolina, but my experience with the Florida medical program, I'll be glad to share, how they do things and how Florida looks. And it's not what they say is going to happen in South Carolina.
True. It's not what they say is going to happen. But yeah, actually, that'd probably be a good kind of topic for one of our conversations some night. Just kind of give us a little bit of your insight on that kind of stuff. Joey coming in just as about, tail ending it. We're not quite ready to end yet because I'm still babbling here. Let me go ahead and switch to another page to remind myself what else I want to talk about. Sponsorships, donations. We do have yeah, April right around the corner. Actually, in 2 days, April's going to start. I have to kind of last minute come up with some sort of April promotion, being the month of 420, to try and help to increase some of our donations and our memberships. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to be doing. I will probably run a discount on some sort of discount on some of the products on our website, especially for members. So if you do have your membership, you might be getting you will be getting an email giving you a special offer on discounts for merch on our website. And again, like I said, I'll be getting out finally to an event on the 16th. I don't have anything scheduled for the 23rd at the moment, only because we were talking about doing an event in downtown Charleston, at one of the parks there to sort of kick off our decrim initiative, but we're sort of rolling back the decrim initiative a little bit while we do work on our coalition building. Right now, again, the only solid partner we have in this is the ACLU of South Carolina. I did speak with Americans for Safe Access recently. No, I'm sorry, Drug Policy Alliance recently, and Marijuana Policy Project. And what we're seeing and what we're suspecting is a lot of the other advocacy groups are not ready to join our coalition until this medical bill gets passed and moves forward. They want to focus specifically on this medical bill. They don't want to muddy the waters and or confuse the topic by starting to collaborate with us on decrim. I hadn't heard any. Joey's asking if we're doing anything with the Hemp Fest at Holy City Brewing. I have not heard anything about that, so I'm going to go ahead and do a real quick Google on that. We are joining on the 16th is like I say with Bohemian Bowl and their kind of 420 event. Real quick. Oh, look at that. They have something going on. Limited tickets. Oh, no, we're probably not going to participate in that. It looks like a music event. And unfortunately, some of these, we're better off outside of the events or something, because when we get to these kind of music events, and we've done a number of different music events, it's impossible for us to talk to people. There's just too much noise. I'm going to look into a little bit more. I don't want to definitely nix it because we do have, we do need to get out and promote, but looks like they've got a lot of music performance going on and more. Let me see if I can get anything from this other link. That would be a situation. I'm going to check it out because that would be a situation if we can be somewhat away from the band. What we were trying to do, and I was reaching out because Willie Nelson's going to be in Simpsonville, near Greenville, I believe it is, on the 23rd. And we were thinking, Willie's a supporter. Willie's on the advisory board at NORML. Maybe we can somehow get involved there. And we didn't even want to be inside the event because, again, the noise, we can't talk to people. We want to be outside, maybe near the entrance, be able to give our brochures and postcards out and try and, you know, collect some donations, maybe sell a couple of t-shirts or whatever. We don't have a lot of merch to sell. But I reached out to a number of different ways. I finally even got an email back from Keith Stroop, who's the founder of NORML National, saying, look, here's who you can contact, but probably they tend to ignore requests anymore. In the early days, you know, they used to be all about it, but now, whether it's to help protect Willie and the family from, you know, rabid fans or whatever, that they tend to not participate in or don't even respond to requests. I did actually get an email back from, I believe it was his granddaughter, maybe a daughter, granddaughter, who I somehow or another got an email to, and they said, you know, thanks for the info, but, and I'll forward it on. Sounds interesting, we'll forward it on. And again, we never heard anything back from that forward. I did get their manager's direct email, followed that up with another request and let them know specifically, we weren't looking to meet the band. We weren't looking to meet Willie. We're just looking to be, we weren't even looking to be inside the venue. We were just looking to be at the venue, outside the entrance, being able to hand out our information and sharing our efforts in South Carolina. And I've heard nothing back, and I'm not anticipating hearing anything back at this point. So that was actually the 24th, Sunday the 24th. So Leah, let me look at this. I mean, it is here in Charleston, Holy City Brewing. It might be something if we can at least get there with a little bit info for a short period. I don't want to be there for an event and sit there and have to try and shout to people over some of these. And I've done that before. I really have. There was a radio station in the area that had a show that they invited us to participate in one time, set us up right next to their personalities with our table. And once the music started, I couldn't talk to anybody. And that, at that, mind you, at that point, we were trying to collect signatures for our decrim petitions and to try and explain to people what they needed to do, that they had to be a resident of that particular municipality, this and that. They couldn't hear me. I couldn't hear them. We got a whole bunch of bad signatures that we couldn't use because they weren't actually registered to vote in that particular community. That is one of the challenges. Now, I know the event that I'm scheduled to do on the 14th, they are going to have some music, but they're also having other crafters and vendors. And I believe there's some separation of that space. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really drug my feet. My big goal this year was to get our press conference back in February. And I said, I'm gonna have to start thinking about something for April, but we just don't have the funding to start our own event. And I'm gonna actually, I must admit, there was 2 years ago, I think it was maybe 3 years back, another small brew pub called Low Tide Brewing here over on Johns Island, still in the city of Charleston, but a little bit away from downtown. And they allowed us to come over there and set up. And it wasn't too bad because they just had music playing like through their sound system. They didn't have a band or anything like that. And they gave me a microphone. So like in between songs, I could real quick turn on the microphone and say, hey, we're doing a drawing for, you know, a t-shirt or a pot leaf pen or, you know, things like that. And we were able to give all of our information out and actually got quite a few followers from that particular event. So yes, thank you for sharing that one with me, Joey. I will at least look at it a little bit and see. That's a Wednesday. I have to check that because I know I've got it in the back of my mind. I was planning on going to get a THC molecule tattoo that day to sort of commemorate 420. And that would my schedule put that on earlier in the day, but let me think about that. Love the idea of a bake sale. And one thing that we can do with our website is we can post things as you know, like kind of a, not necessarily auction items, but almost like a online yard sale type thing. Yeah. Yeah, let me kind of look at that. I know that now that you mentioned this one, I didn't know that Holy City was doing events. So I'm going to make a note of this one as well. I may be able to get that over there. On-site memberships are a little tough, but we can always just have them sign up and then send them their merch later on, or send them memberships later on. We do bring limited merch out sometimes. I think we're down to mostly large t-shirts, so they don't have a lot of size variety, and I'm getting ready to put another order in. But things have been a little slow with getting that stuff back with the supply chain issues. So anyway, I apologize for dragging this out, but yeah, I'm going to look into the Holy City Brewing as well, because I might be able to sneak over and do something there that evening, at least to go over for a couple of hours as it starts to kick off. And then once it really gets into full noise mode, I can sneak out, leave some brochures, and hopefully I've passed out some info. I've been to an event with a couple of these, the dub plates, I think, were involved in, oh boy, what was it? There was an event here a couple of years back. I forget the name of it now, but they were a big part of that one. So yeah, we'll see what we can come together. Bake sale, the brownies will be a big hit. I'd like to figure out a way to do a good bake sale. That would be interesting. And like I say, of course, we'd have to reassure people nothing is infused. But let's talk more about that.
Delta 8. We could bake stuff with Delta 8.
I suppose. I'd be cautious, but I know that stuff is now available at I don't know about brownies per se, but I know chocolates and other edible stuff with Delta 8. I was at my first vape shop a couple of months back. I was a month or two ago because somebody had asked me to take them a bunch of brochures. And so I went over. While I was talking to them, I had to step back every now and again because customers were pretty steadily coming in, and they had the Delta 8 and had some Delta 9 products, which those kind of I
Not
know
Delta 9, they have Delta 10 now.
10. Well,
They
there was
don't do
actually some
Delta.
nine in this shop that they said was hemp-derived Delta 9. So I don't know how that works. Because they say, of course, if it's below the percentage, I'm a little skeptical on some of those. But anyway, that would be something interesting to look at. Again, I would probably try and make it non-infused, just to sort of put everybody at law enforcement anyway. But yeah, it'd be something I'd have to look in a little bit further just to be sure that we weren't getting ourselves in any trouble with that. And I don't know why we would. If they're selling Delta 8 products and Delta 10 products on the off the shelf, that should not be an issue. So we could talk about that more. I don't think it'll be something we'll have for 420 at the moment, but definitely like to talk about that a little more.
What about a contest where people have, they pay an entry fee, and of course it have to be legal, so they can only use Delta 8, and then, we'd be the judges.
You mean like a baking contest?
Yeah, they can just take them outside the box.
That could be interesting. Yeah, we need to come up with some good viable ideas, and I appreciate the input. I know I've thought of a little bit of a bake sale in the past and sort of put it off, an auction thing in the past and the yard sale in the past. There's all these things that I just don't follow through. Again, part of it, and I've got to give myself a little escape here, is with my challenge in the past has been trying to find people to sort of help organize these things for me, because I got a lot of kind of stuff on my plate, and to be able to concentrate on one particular thing. So I always look for volunteers that are willing to be our organizers for me. And that we're going to talk to Josh more. He says, I do a ton of fundraisers. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more. I'm going to get you on my schedule for, when do you say you're back in? Are you back in town now?
I'll be back in next week.
Next week, okay. We'll get you on for a call next week, because I really want to talk about that then with you and see if maybe you can help me organize something. That's where I've dropped the ball a lot in the past, is I've just not been the guy to be doing the organizing on some of these, because I'm always trying to do other shit. And that's where you'll every now and again hear me complaining, I don't have enough help, I need some help, I need volunteers. Yeah. I'm still trying to find us like a volunteer coordinator if we do get more volunteers, because I've had people try and sign up on our volunteer form. I want to be a volunteer, and then I don't know what to do with them. I need a volunteer coordinator, somebody to help me with that stuff. But anyway, I see we're already after 8 o'clock. Before we go too much further, I've got a couple of notes for myself. Check out Holy City Brewing 420 event. Get Josh on the schedule to talk about fundraising with me next week. And before I cut us short, anybody else have any other thoughts or input that they'd like to share? Okay, I think those are my two big things. Like I say, the other thing I know I'm working on is trying to build this Decrim Charleston coalition. And that's where a lot of my focus is kind of going at the moment. I do have another call scheduled. I think it's tomorrow, might be Friday, with Americans for Prosperity. They did not participate with us back in February for our press conference, primarily because we had a political candidate agree to speak with us that day, and they did not necessarily want to be associated with supporting that candidate. But in a Decrim coalition, they'd be willing to work with us, I believe. So I have a little conversation scheduled with them. And again, I'm going to predict that I'm going to get some of the same feedback that I've gotten from some of the other organizations. Is once the governor signs S-150, we'd be more than willing to participate publicly. That's kind of my anticipation on that. I'll keep you guys posted on how that goes. Otherwise, I am going to wrap it up tonight. I'm getting a little dry throat here. And Josh, keep an eye out for me contacting you early or mid next week to get something on the schedule. That's it for tonight. I want to thank you all for joining me and being here with me. We will be back again next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And in the meantime, don't forget to follow us on Facebook. That's where I post most of our stuff. We do sometimes get stuff posted on Instagram and Twitter as well. Don't forget, if you miss our meetings, you can always see them on our YouTube channel. And last but not least, visit our website, scnormal.org. Scroll all the way down to the bottom and make sure you're signed up for our newsletter. That's it for me tonight, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I always appreciate you. Have a great night. Bye-bye now.